What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the ign-arena-podcast. I'm Leah B. Jackson. This is James Faulkner. This is Brian Albert.
Hello.
This is Mitch Dyer.
Howdy.
And IGN Arena is our MOBA and competitive gaming podcast, if you're not quite familiar with it yet. If you want to know more about MOBAs in general, you can check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/IGN-arena. And if you want to subscribe or write into us, you can do that too at arenapodcast@ign.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes.
We're everywhere.
Or
Taking
everywhere.
over.
Yes, indeed. So one of our readers from last week wrote us in, Yair, and he was asking about getting into MOBAs.
Yep.
There's so many coming out right now that it's sort of like, how do I get into it? What should I do? So Yair writes in and says, I've been wanting to get into MOBAs, but I played a couple matches of Dota 2 and got destroyed. Any tips?
So after 200 hours of Dota 2, this is still my experience.
You're still getting destroyed?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah. As we're saying before the podcast, number one tip. What is it?
Don't die.
Don't
die.
feed.
Don't feed.
Don't feed, don't die.
Yeah.
If you don't see someone, be scared because they're coming for you.
They're going to find you. That's the most terrifying thing.
It's really easy. Like, if you play a lot of other kinds of games, your characters are generally powerful.
Yeah.
You're just strong characters in games. But
Right.
in Dota, you're not really.
Or in
at
any
least,
MOBA, really.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
true.
and in most other games, too, like when you die, it's almost inconsequential because, one, you respawn immediately. Two, it actually doesn't benefit the other team that much except for the score.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Dota, if you die, and this is true of every MOBA, but when you die, you're giving the other team an enormous amount of gold, a bunch of experience points that helps them level up, and they improve their skills and items more rapidly because of you.
And there's also like less pressure on other lanes. It's like basically if you're gone from the map, there is a power balance that has been tipped.
It's huge, too. Like, one death really matters, even if it's early in the game.
Yeah.
That first blood that happens at, like, 60 seconds is still significant because that's time you are not earning XP and that they are.
Right. It's so the beginning of most MOBAs is you're sort of in a lane and you're trying to get enough experience and gold to go around and make bigger stuff happen.
Yeah.
But during that point, you might feel like you're not doing anything if you're not attacking the enemy or you're not running around or whatever. And that's okay a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's okay to stay in your lane and farm and sort of get your bearings and help, your teammates out.
Yeah.
And
Some
do all that
characters
type of stuff.
will leave their lanes early and gank, but like that's not a thing to worry about right now if you're just starting.
Yeah, I mean, that's like at that point when you're desperate, like, I want to do something, I want to help people.
Yeah.
At that point, that plays into Leah's number one tip, which is just like keep a constant eye on your minimap.
Yeah, so my number one tip for new players is to always be aware of your minimap and to definitely check it out a lot more than you think that you should, because that's something that I find a lot of new players don't do. They're just like, it's a map, I don't care, I don't need to be looking at it. But it's like, no, I want to shake you because you have to look at your minimap. It shows where your teammates are and where your opponents are if they're on the map. And if all of a sudden, one of those blips from the enemy team isn't on the map anymore, it's like, oh crap, where is that guy? Do I need to be more careful? Like, what should I be focusing on? And it really helps to communicate that to your team as well if the person in your lane is now missing. So it's important to sort of have, to communicate and to use your minimap a lot.
Yeah. I have a super short story about that. So
Regale me.
In Dota, there's this character called Phantom Assassin, and part of her passive is that she won't show up on your minimap.
Really?
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. That's
If she has that
terrifying.
blur, the blur passive
my
going on.
God.
Yeah, so most characters you can see, but then I didn't see her on there one time, and I was like, okay, no. And she came up and just
Does she show
exploded
up,
me.
and this is getting like way into the weeds, but like if Bloodseeker is on your team and she's below 50 and has that active, does she show up?
I believe you can still see her
Okay.
with Thirst active. But anyway, yeah, we're diving deep right
Okay.
there.
Oh, yeah. Let's get way into the semantics of it. All right. No. Sorry. We'll keep it real basic. My number one tip is to do what I still get into this habit. I actually had to turn it off in the options because it is such a problem for me. But like, don't auto attack.
Yes.
If you right click on something, your character will just beat the snot out of it, and when it dies, it'll auto attack the next thing, which is really bad. Like you think that's good because you're helping, you're killing stuff, you're getting money, you're getting XP. It's bad. Don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're just pushing up, and then you're putting yourself in a position is also a very important thing which we can talk about, but like you're putting yourself in a bad position by forcing yourself up the lane.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're basically like if you're auto-attacking creeps in a lane or the minions that are coming down the lane, then your team is pushing towards the other team's tower probably or maybe a little bit earlier than you might want to do that because towers are really, really strong early game. And so you don't always want to do that. You want to kind of keep a balance and be on your side of the map where you can defend a little bit easier as well.
Sure. The closer you are to your tower, the less likely they're going to come out and try to kill you.
Yeah,
you can just
totally.
run back if you
I
see
am
it or
like
whatever.
profoundly uncomfortable being on that bridge in top lane. If I'm pushing out, it's like this is a bad spot to be, right? Because somebody can come out of the river, they can come out of the forest. Like there's so many places for you to get jumped, and that makes me so uneasy.
Yeah, so situational awareness is just huge.
Kind of going back to like the vision thing, wards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, wards save lives.
Wards are, I think, probably the most important item for a team. Stats items and damage items are great,
but in terms of like moment to moment, what is happening? There's nothing more important than a ward.
So if you have extra gold, whether it be in Dota or League, buy wards. They're not that expensive.
Yeah, and a great thing about wards is that they're really cheap. In any MOBA that you play, they are so cheap. So it's like if you are a new player and you can't possibly imagine farming up thousands and thousands of gold worth of items, in order to deck your character out, you can always buy wards because your team will love you. No matter what, your team will just be like, yeah, you bought wards. We can see what's going on now.
Yeah, and make sure you put them in good places, right? Like you want to put them in like the middle of a lane or on a corner where you can see the rune, something that gives you detection in areas where you are potentially in danger.
And so explain what wards are and then...
Sure, so
regale us again.
Yeah. So it's basically just a little like structure. I guess it's called the structure in like the game's terms. But anyway, it just gives you vision of an area without you having creeps there or your characters there.
Totally.
And then there are certain wards that see invisible characters too, but they have smaller radius. They're super important. You want them for the middle of the game or for early middle game, and then like in the late game when you're like pushing their base, you'll have like offensive wards in their areas, so you can like corner them.
Right.
They're super useful. I would say I still have a long way to go in Dota, and I'm getting better. But like the moment when I started getting much better is when I started buying wards and teleport scrolls.
Yep.
And it feels like you're wasting your money sometimes because like,
that
I'm not
space,
killing
like you
someone.
have limited amount of space in your inventory, and you're like, I could fit a demon edge in here, but I also
could buy
need
wards.
these wards.
Yep. Don't be afraid to buy that stuff. It's super useful. Your team will love you, as Leah said.
If you haven't read it, everybody go on Google right now and Google the Purge guide. Welcome to Dota. You suck.
So helpful.
It's like 10,000 words, and it is the most helpful thing I've ever read about Dota. It breaks down exactly, like this is what this item is. This is how you stop feeding. This is the character you want to play when you first start out, and you maybe graduate here. This is what your role is. These are how these characters function. Learn how these items work. Don't buy these. Like there's so many helpful details
characters
in there.
to avoid.
One thing to definitely keep in mind if you're new to MOBAs, not just Dota 2, but any MOBA in general, is that you are going to suck when you first start. Like there are people who have been playing for years and years and years, and even if it's a new MOBA, they've been playing for months and months longer than you, and they are going to say you suck, and they're going to let you know, and you just... you have to get past it, and you have to keep trying and learning and, do some research about which game that you're playing, because they're all a little different. But these tips that we've said, sort of go with any MOBA that you're trying.
James, I love you deeply, and I'm telling you this is your friend. You suck at Dota.
I know. I'm kind of okay at League, though.
Yeah, you are way better at League.
Also, the mute button, I want to throw that out there.
Oh, the mute button's so nice.
So if people are being crappy and being jerks, just mute them.
Turn off the chat, hit your tilde, bring up the thing, and you can just hit the button to
Don't worry about them. They can deal with it.
Yeah, don't engage idiots who are being mean. Like, if they're telling you suck, acknowledge that, like, yeah, I probably do, and move on with your life.
And Mitch, get wrecked. I'm the best.
Get wrecked.
So thank you very much, Jair, for sending in that awesome user question. If you want to send in a question for the next podcast, our email is arena-podcast@ign.com, and we're also looking for feedback all the time. So thank you again. And if you want more tips on MOBAs, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ign-arena.